What would you do if the man you were supposed to marry ended up in your sister's arms, and the only person willing to protect you was the most feared Mafia boss in New Orleans? Claire Bennett came home carrying wedding favors, still believing her life was neat, safe, and almost perfect. Then she opened the bedroom door and watched every promise she had trusted burn in silence. No screaming, no broken plates, just the sound of her heart learning how betrayal feels. That night she ran into the rain into a bar where good girls don't belong and sat beside Dominic Cross, a man with blood on his cuffs and power in his name. This isn't just a love story. It's about betrayal, revenge, survival, and the moment a broken woman becomes dangerous. Like this video comment where you're watching from and don't look away. Before the rain, before the blood on Dominic Cross's cuff. Before Claire Bennett signed her name beside a stranger's in a warehouse that smelled like salt water and rust, she had still believed her life was something she could hold together if she worked hard enough. That was the cruelest part. Nothing about that Friday evening looked like the end. The Garden District was glowing under late summer heat, all white columns, iron balconies, and oak trees heavy with Spanish moss. The kind of neighborhood tourists photographed because it looked untouched by ordinary pain. Porches sat behind trimmed hedges. Gas lamps flickered as if the city had decided to keep one foot in another century. Somewhere down the block, a saxophone player was practicing behind an open window, the notes drifting into the humid air like smoke. Claire climbed the front steps of her apartment building with 2 cardboard boxes balanced against her hip. Her blouse stuck to the small of her back. A curl had escaped her neat low bun and clung damply to her cheek. Inside the boxes were tiny glass jars of Louisiana honey, each one tied with ivory ribbon and a little gold tag that read, Claire and Owen. She had spent 3 hours picking the font. 3 hours for a tag most guests were going to toss into a drawer or leave behind on a reception table. That thought should have made her laugh. Instead, it made her tired. Her phone buzzed in the pocket of her linen trousers while she fumbled with the building key. Mom. Claire shifted the boxes, trapped them between her body and the doorframe, and glanced down at the screen. Madison is sensitive today. Please try not to make everything about wedding stress when she comes over. Claire stared at the message for a moment longer than she should have. Sensitive. Madison had been sensitive since the day she learned crying softened their mother faster than honesty ever could. Sensitive when she borrowed Claire's clothes without asking. Sensitive when she forgot to pay her share of rent during college and Claire covered it. Sensitive when she flirted with men Claire liked, then blinked those wide blue eyes and said she was just being friendly. Claire typed nothing back. She slipped the phone away and pushed into the lobby. The building smelled like floor polish, old wood, and someone's garlic dinner. The elevator had been broken for 2 days, so Claire took the stairs. By the second floor, the boxes felt twice as heavy. By the third, the cardboard edge had dug a thin red line into her wrist. She told herself it was fine. That was what Claire did. She made things fine. When the florist lost the order for Ivory Garden roses, Claire found another florist by midnight. When Owen's mother complained that the rehearsal dinner menu was too modern, Claire changed the menu and smiled through the phone. When Madison cried during the dress fitting because the maid of honor gown made her look washed out, Claire switched the color from sage to champagne. Champagne looked better on Madison. Sage had been Claire's favorite. At the door of apartment 3B, Claire paused and rolled her shoulders back. The brass number was crooked, tilted slightly to the left. Owen had promised to fix it 6 months ago. Every time she noticed it, she told herself he was busy. Tax law was demanding. His firm was brutal. He loved her. He just forgot small things. Small things did not matter when the big thing was secure. Marriage was the big thing. Owen was supposed to be her steady ground. She turned the key. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Usually when Owen worked from home, she heard him before she saw him. Keyboard clicks, conference calls. his low professional voice saying phrases like liability exposure and quarterly filing. If Madison was there, there should have been music, something soft and sad playing from her phone, because Madison believed every ordinary moment deserved a soundtrack. But there was nothing, only the hum of the refrigerator and the slow tick of the wall clock above the entry table. Claire stepped inside and nudged the door shut with her heel. "Owen." Her voice came out light normal, almost cheerful. No answer. She set one box of honey jars on the console table beside a shallow ceramic bowl filled with keys, loose change, and Owen's expired gym card. The second box stayed braced against her side. She glanced toward the living room. Owen's leather briefcase sat by the couch. He was not supposed to be home. A thin unease moved through her quiet as a finger trailing the back of her neck. Claire walked farther in. The apartment looked almost exactly as she had left it that morning. Sunlight slanted through the blinds in gold strips across the hardwood floor. A stack of wedding envelopes sat on the coffee table. The sofa throw was folded over the arm neat because Claire had folded it before leaving. On the wall behind the couch, the framed engagement photo smiled down at her with unbearable confidence. Claire and Owen in Audubon Park. Owen's arm around her waist. Claire's face bright with the kind of happiness that trusted tomorrow. Near the hallway, a pair of champagne heels sat on the floor. Madison's heels. Claire stopped. Her fingers tightened around the box until the cardboard groaned. Madison came over often. Too often, according to Claire's private thoughts. She liked Claire's apartment because it was prettier than her own. She liked Owen's wine collection. She liked lying across their sofa and talking about her latest heartbreak as if Claire did not have deadlines, wedding calls, and a life of her own. But Madison usually announced herself. A laugh from the bedroom. Not loud, not quite a laugh. A breath, maybe. A muffled sound pressed into fabric. Claire's body understood before her mind allowed it. The hallway seemed longer than it had ever been. 7 steps from the living room to the bedroom door. She knew because she counted them without meaning to. 1. The box of honey jars shifted in her arms. 2. A board creaked under her foot. 3. Another sound came from behind the door. A whisper, Owen's voice. Too soft to make out. 4. Claire thought of the wedding favors, the champagne maid of honor dress, the text from her mother. 5. She smelled Madison's perfume. Vanilla and orange blossom, too sweet, too young, always sprayed too heavily. 6. The bedroom door stood half open. 7. Claire pushed it with her fingertips. The door swung inward. For one clean second, the world became impossibly sharp. Owen stood near the foot of the bed. His dress shirt unbuttoned his belt, hanging open. Madison was against the dresser wearing Claire's pale silk robe, the one Claire had bought for the honeymoon and told herself she deserved because she almost never bought beautiful things just for herself. Owen's hand was in Madison's hair. Madison's lipstick was smeared. The wedding ring sample Owen had picked up from the jeweler sat on the nightstand in a small velvet tray. Claire stared at it first. Not at Owen. Not at Madison. At the ring. A plain gold band. Safe. Traditional. Respectable. Exactly like Owen. Then one of the honey jars slipped from the tilted box, struck the floor, and cracked open. Golden honey spread across the hardwood in a slow, sticky pool. Owen jerked back as if the sound had fired from a gun. Claire. Her name came out broken. Madison clutched the robe closed with both hands. Her eyes widened, then filled with tears so quickly it looked rehearsed. "Oh my God," Madison whispered. "Claire, I can explain." Claire did not move. Her thoughts did not arrive in sentences. They came as images. The tasting menu, the floral deposit, the ivory dress hanging in a garment bag at the boutique. Owen kissing her forehead that morning while checking his email. Madison crying in the bridal salon because she wanted to feel included. 300 invitations already mailed, her mother telling her not to make everything about wedding stress. Owen took one step forward. "Please, listen to me." Claire looked at him then, really looked. His face was pale and damp with panic. His hair stuck up on one side where Madison's fingers had been. He was trying to pull himself together, trying to become the man who read contracts carefully and explained tax codes at dinner parties. But he could not make his belt disappear. He could not take Madison out of Claire's robe. He could not put the room back into its old shape. Claire lowered the box of wedding favors onto the bed. The glass jars clinked together. The sound made Madison flinch. "That robe is mine," Claire said. It was not what she expected to say. Owen blinked. Madison's mouth parted. Claire kept looking at the silk tied around her sister's waist. "I was saving it for the honeymoon." Madison's tears spilled over. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." Claire turned her head slowly. "You didn't mean to take off your clothes." Madison swallowed. "It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" Owen dragged a hand over his face. "Claire, please. We were talking. She was upset. She felt like you were shutting her out of the wedding." Claire laughed once. The sound did not belong to her. It was too dry, too empty. "She felt shut out of my wedding, so you let her into my bed." Owen winced. Madison shook her head, tears shining on her cheeks. "It just happened." There it was. Claire had heard that sentence her whole life. It just happened when Madison borrowed her car and returned it with a dented bumper. It just happened when Madison told their mother about Claire's first college rejection before Claire was ready. It just happened when Madison kissed a boy Claire liked senior year and then cried because she thought Claire was mad. Claire looked at her sister standing in stolen silk. "You always say that after you take something that belongs to me." Madison's expression changed. Only for a second. The softness slipped. Something sharper showed underneath. Resentment, annoyance, the tired anger of someone who hated being seen clearly. Then the tears came back. "That's not fair." "No," Claire said. "It isn't." Owen reached for her. She looked down at his hand. He stopped halfway. "Claire, I love you." The words should have hurt. Instead, they landed like paper dropped into water, soft and ruined on impact. "No, you don't. I do. You love the version of me that makes your life easier." His mouth tightened. "That's not true." Claire looked around the bedroom. The laundry hamper was full because she had not had time to wash clothes that week. The bed was unmade because Owen never made it unless she reminded him. On the dresser beside Madison's clutch sat Claire's wedding planner binder, thick with tabs and notes and receipts. She had built a life around a man who could not even be loyal in the room where she slept. "You let me plan a wedding while you were doing this." Owen's eyes darted to Madison, then back. It was a mistake. How many times silence? The silence answered before either of them could lie. Claire felt something inside her split cleanly down the middle. Not explode, not shatter. Split. A quiet structural failure. She nodded once. Owen rushed forward. "Claire, wait." He reached for her arm. The coldness that moved through her then was almost peaceful. "If you touch me," she said, "I will scream so loudly the whole building hears exactly why your pants are open." Owen froze. Madison made a small wounded sound. "Why are you being so cruel?" Claire turned on her. The room seemed to shrink. I walked in on my fiancé with my sister wearing my robe beside my wedding binder, and you want to audition for victim Madison's, face crumpled. "You always do this." Claire stared. "I always do what you always act like you're better than me." Owen closed his eyes. Madison. But Madison had opened the door inside herself now, and bitterness came pouring out. Perfect Claire. Responsible Claire. Claire with the career and the fiancé and the apartment and the mother who brags about her at church. Claire felt her throat tighten. Our mother has spent my entire life asking me to make room for you. Madison's chin trembled. You don't know what it feels like to be invisible next to someone like you. For a moment, Claire almost laughed again. Invisible. Madison, who filled every room with crisis. Madison, whose sadness bent the family schedule. Madison, who could burn a house down and still be handed a blanket because she looked cold. Claire looked at Owen. And you? His face twisted. I was scared. Of what? He had no answer ready. So, Claire waited. Owen's shoulders sagged. Of the wedding. Of everything changing. Your plans got so big, Claire. Everything had to be perfect. The words slid into her chest and found a place to cut. My plans. He looked ashamed, but not enough. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. Claire could see it now. The story he had already started telling himself. Madison understood him. Claire pressured him. The wedding became too much. He was lonely. He made a mistake. Maybe Claire had been too focused, too driven, too precise. Maybe if she softened the edges enough, everyone could survive his betrayal without naming it too loudly. Her mother was going to love that version. Claire reached for her engagement ring. Owen noticed. His face went white. No. Claire, don't. The ring stuck for a second, tight from the heat. She twisted harder until it slid over her knuckle. Her finger looked strange without it. Smaller. Bare. Almost innocent. She placed the ring beside the cracked honey jar on the floor. I paid the photographer deposit from my account, she said. You can handle canceling it. Owen stared at the ring. Please don't do this. Do what? Throw away 3 years. Claire felt the first sting behind her eyes. 3 years. Sunday groceries. Shared passwords. Flu medicine. Dinner with his parents. The way he rubbed her back when she worked late. The way he proposed under oak trees while Madison filmed it and cried prettier than the bride. 3 years did not vanish because she wanted them to. That was the trap. Betrayal did not erase love immediately. It poisoned it slowly while the body still remembered where warmth used to be. Claire inhaled. I'm not throwing away 3 years, Owen. I'm refusing to spend the 4th pretending I didn't see this. Madison sat on the edge of the bed and covered her face. Claire wanted to hate her cleanly. She could not. Under the rage, there was something older. A memory of Madison at 9 years old crawling into Claire's bed during thunderstorms. Madison at 16, sobbing after their father forgot her birthday. Madison on a Florida beach laughing with her hair full of salt and sunlight. That was the kind of cruelty family could create. The knife came with a handle you recognized. Claire looked at the childhood photo on the dresser, the two of them smiling in matching swimsuits, arms around each other like the future had not yet learned how to separate them. For one dangerous second, she almost asked why. Not why Owen. Why me? But she knew better than to ask people to explain wounds they had chosen to make. Claire walked to the closet and pulled down her overnight bag. Owen stepped toward her again. Where are you going out? For how long? Claire folded a black dress into the bag with shaking hands. I don't know. You can't just leave. She turned. His panic sharpened. This is our apartment. No, Claire said. It's a crime scene with throw pillows. Madison looked up. Claire, please. Mom is going to be devastated. There it was again. Mom. The final courtroom. Claire zipped the bag. Then you can comfort her. You seem comfortable comforting people. Madison recoiled as if slapped. Owen's voice cracked. I'll sleep on the couch. Madison will leave. We can talk in the morning when everyone is calm. Claire stared at him. The audacity of calm. Men like Owen loved calm after they caused chaos. Calm helped them arrange the broken pieces into something less incriminating. Calm gave them room to choose softer words. Affair became mistake. Betrayal became confusion. Consequence became cruelty. Claire lifted the bag onto her shoulder. No. Owen's face hardened for the first time. So, that's it. You're just done. The shift was small, but Claire caught it. The moment pleading failed. Resentment stepped in. You humiliated me, he said. Claire stared at him. I humiliated you. If you walk out like this, everyone will know something happened. Something did happen. You know what I mean? Yes, Claire said softly. You mean I'm supposed to protect your reputation from your behavior? Owen looked away. That hurt more than if he had argued. Claire walked past him into the hallway. Madison called after her. I never wanted to lose you. Claire stopped at the bedroom door but did not turn around. You should have thought of that before you decided I was replaceable. She left them there. In the living room, the apartment looked exactly the same and completely dead. The save-the-date samples sat near the lamp. A half-full wine glass rested on the coffee table with Madison's lipstick on the rim. Owen's navy tie lay across the back of the sofa like a shed skin. Claire picked up her purse from the entry table. Her phone started ringing again. Mom! Claire stared at the screen until it stopped. Then came the voicemail. She should have ignored it. She did not. Her mother's voice filled the hallway, tight and breathless. Claire, Madison just called me crying. Owen sounds awful. I don't know what happened, but please do not make any dramatic decisions tonight. Weddings are stressful. People make mistakes when emotions run high. Call me back. And remember, Madison is your sister. Claire stood with one hand on the doorknob. The apartment behind her smelled like honey, perfume, and betrayal. Remember, Madison is your sister. As if Claire could forget. As if that was not the part making it hard to breathe. Her thumb hovered over the callback button. For most of her life, Claire had been trained to answer, to soothe, to clarify, to carry the emotional luggage everyone else left in the middle of the room. Instead, she powered off the phone. The screen went black. So did something soft inside her. Claire opened the door and stepped into the hallway. She did not slam it. She closed it gently because some endings did not need noise to be final. The corridor smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner. Downstairs, someone's television laughed through thin walls. Ordinary life continued with insulting ease. Claire walked to the stairwell. Her legs felt strange, like they belonged to someone who had not learned gravity yet. The overnight bag bumped against her hip. Her broken engagement ring finger throbbed bare and swollen. By the time she reached the street, New Orleans had turned blue with evening. The sky hung low and heavy. Heat rose from the pavement. A streetcar bell clanged somewhere in the distance. Couples moved along the sidewalk, holding hands, headed to dinner, to music, to rooms where no one had yet ruined them. Claire stood at the curb and lifted her hand for a cab. One pulled over almost immediately, yellow paint dulled by rain streaks and city grime. The driver leaned back as she climbed in. Where to? Claire opened her mouth. No answer came. Home was upstairs with Owen and Madison. Her mother's house was full of questions she did not have the strength to survive. A hotel required a credit card and a version of herself capable of speaking politely to a front desk clerk. She looked through the windshield at the city spreading ahead, all wet light and shadow, all music and rot and secrets under balconies. Just drive, she said. The driver met her eyes in the mirror. You got a direction in mind? Claire looked down at her bare finger. The pale mark where the ring had been looked like a ghost. Somewhere, no one knows me. The cab pulled away from the curb. Claire did not look back at the apartment building. She watched it shrink in the side mirror until the crooked brass number, the bedroom window, and the life she had arranged so carefully disappeared behind oak trees and traffic. Rain began as a mist against the glass, soft at first, then harder. The driver took her away from the garden district, past restaurants glowing with candlelit tables, past bridal shops with white gowns posed like silent angels, past churches where women like Claire walked down aisles believing love was a contract both people had signed in good faith. Her purse buzzed even with the phone off phantom vibrations from a life still trying to summon her back. Claire pressed her forehead to the cool window. She did not cry. The tears were there somewhere deep, but they had frozen before they reached the surface. After 15 minutes, the cab turned into the bywater where the streets grew rougher and the buildings leaned closer together. Neon signs trembled in puddles. A man in a Saints jersey smoked under a green awning. Music spilled from a doorway, low and mournful, a blues guitar bending notes like something wounded but still alive. The driver slowed near a narrow corner bar with blacked-out windows and a sign shaped like an old lantern. The Black Lantern. The kind of place Claire usually passed quickly, one hand tight around her purse, pretending not to notice the men smoking outside. Tonight, it looked honest. Ugly, but honest. No white roses, no family expectations, no champagne dresses, no one asking her to be reasonable. Claire pulled cash from her wallet and handed it to the driver. He looked at the bills, then at her face. "You sure about this place?" Claire opened the door. Rain touched her cheeks like cold fingers. "No," she said. Then she stepped out of the cab and walked toward the bar, still wearing the clothes of a woman who had almost been a bride. The Black Lantern did not look like a place where anyone came to be saved. Its windows were blacked out by old tint and years of smoke. The sign above the door buzzed in a tired red glow, one letter flickering like it was considering giving up. Rainwater ran along the curb in dirty ribbons, carrying cigarette ash leaves and pieces of somebody's night toward the gutter. Claire stood beneath the awning for a moment with one hand on the door handle. Inside, she could hear music. Not loud music, not happy music. A slow blues guitar moved through the walls like a confession. She looked down at herself. Cream blouse, linen trousers, wedding manicure, overnight bag clutched in one hand, bare ring finger still swollen from where Owen's diamond had been. She almost laughed. She looked like the kind of woman who called places like this dangerous. Now danger felt cleaner than going home. Claire pulled the door open. Warm, stale air hit her first. Beer, bleach, old wood, burned coffee, rain-soaked leather. Beneath it all was the faint coppery scent of something she did not want to name. The bar was narrow and dim with a scarred counter running along one side and a line of cracked red stools bolted to the floor. A jukebox glowed in the back corner, humming out a song about a woman leaving a man who deserved it. 2 men played pool beneath a crooked lamp. Another slept with his cheek against the table, one hand still wrapped around an empty glass. No one turned to stare for long. That was why Claire chose to stay. The bartender was built like a retired boxer. Thick shoulders, gray beard, black shirt stretched across his chest. He looked at her once, taking in the expensive blouse, the damp hair, the overnight bag, the empty finger. "What are you drinking?" Claire slid onto the farthest stool from the door. "Bourbon." "Glass." She placed her purse on the counter and looked at the bottles behind him. Bottle. His eyebrows rose. She stared back. He reached for a square bottle with a plain label, set it in front of her with a short glass, then waited. Claire pulled out cash and placed it on the bar. "Keep it open," she said. The bartender looked at the money, then at her face. Whatever he saw there made him stop asking questions. "Suit yourself." Claire poured too much. The bourbon hit the glass with a heavy amber splash. Her hand shook as she lifted it. She hated that. She hated the tiny betrayal of her own body, the way it kept admitting she was not fine. She drank. The burn was violent. It went down like fire dragged through wire. Her eyes watered, but she did not cough. Good, she thought. Let something hurt honestly. Behind her, the rain thickened against the windows. Somewhere near the pool table, one of the men muttered about a bad shot. The jukebox changed songs with a dull, mechanical click. Claire poured another drink. Her phone was still off in her purse, but she could feel the weight of it. Owen's calls piling up. Madison's tears turning into explanations. Her mother rehearsing forgiveness before she even knew the crime. She lifted the glass again, then stopped. Her reflection stared back from the dark mirror behind the bottles. Smudged mascara, pale cheeks, hair falling loose from a ruined bun. A woman who had left her engagement ring on a bedroom floor beside spilled honey. Claire raised the glass to her reflection. To the bride, she whispered. Then she drank. The stool beside her scraped against the floor. Claire did not look over. No. The man sat anyway. His voice was low, rough around the edges, calm enough to be insulting. You did not hear the question. I heard the stool. Fair. Claire turned her head, ready to cut him apart because some part of her needed a target that would bleed. The words died before they formed. The man beside her did not belong in the Black Lantern, not because he looked soft. He did not. Nothing about him was soft. He wore a black suit that fit like it had been made on his body by someone afraid to get the measurements wrong. His white shirt was open at the throat, rain darkening one shoulder. His dark hair was pushed back carelessly, but his face had the stillness of a blade laid flat on a table. He was handsome in a way that did not invite trust. Sharp cheekbones, a hard jaw, a mouth that looked like it rarely bothered with kindness. His eyes were nearly black, not empty, but guarded so heavily that Claire felt the warning before she understood it. His hands rested on the bar. Large hands, scarred knuckles, a silver watch at his wrist. No wedding ring. The bartender saw him and changed. Not visibly enough for the room to notice, but Claire noticed details for a living. Shoulders squared, chin dipped, movements suddenly careful. Without asking, the bartender reached under the counter and brought out a bottle with no label. He poured 2 fingers of dark liquor into a clean glass and placed it before the man. No bill, no small talk. The bartender stepped away. Claire looked at the man. You famous? He took a slow drink. Only with the wrong people. Sounds inconvenient. It keeps dinner parties short. Claire let out a laugh before she could stop herself. It was dry and ugly, but it was the first real sound she had made all night. The man's eyes moved to her hand. You had a ring. Claire curled her fingers inward. That obvious. The skin gives it away. She looked at the pale circle where the diamond had been. So does the bourbon, probably. That too. Claire poured another drink. You always inspect women's hands in bars. Only the ones drinking like they are trying to erase a witness. She should have been offended. Instead, she was relieved. Pity would have undone her. This stranger gave her observation, and observation did not demand gratitude. Claire looked into her glass. My fiancé slept with my sister. The words landed between them without drama. There it was. The ugly thing spoken plainly under bad neon. The man did not flinch. He did not say sorry. He did not offer a soft, useless sound. He only said, That is personal. Claire laughed again, quieter this time. Yes, that is one word for it. Where my apartment? His gaze sharpened slightly. Bold. In my robe. Stupid. With the wedding favors in my arms. His mouth moved almost a smile, but not quite. Cruel. Claire looked at him then. That was the right word. Not tragic, not messy, not complicated. Cruel. She gripped the glass too tightly. 3 weeks from now, I was supposed to walk down the aisle at St. Augustine's in a dress that cost more than my first car. 300 guests, white roses, shrimp and grits station because Owen's mother said seated dinners feel stiff. My sister was going to stand behind me in champagne satin and hold my bouquet. The man listened. The stillness of him made talking easier. He did not lean in too eagerly. He did not try to own the story. He simply sat there, dangerous and silent, while the words came out. I spent months making sure everyone else was comfortable. Owen's mother, my mother, Madison, the florist, the caterer, the priest. I changed the bridesmaid dresses because Madison cried. I changed the menu because Owen's mother complained. I moved the ceremony time because my mother said afternoon light would make Madison look tired in photos. Claire swallowed the rest of the bourbon and welcomed the burn, and tonight Madison told me she felt invisible. The man turned his glass slowly between his fingers. "Did you believe her?" Claire looked at him. "No." "Good." The answer was so blunt that it startled her. "You don't know her. I know people who call themselves invisible while standing in the middle of everything they destroyed." Claire stared at him a little longer. The rain traced trembling lines down the black window. The jukebox shifted into a slower song. The bar around them seemed farther away now, as if the room had leaned back to give them space. "What is your name?" Claire asked. The man paused. Not long. Long enough for her to notice. "Dominic. Just Dominic. For tonight." That sounds like something a man says before becoming a problem. His eyes met hers. "I am already a problem." Claire should have looked away. She did not. There was something wrong with the way he held her attention. Owen had been handsome in a safe, polished way, all clean shirts and good manners. Dominic looked like he had walked out of a locked room with blood on the floor and had not bothered to explain himself. Claire should have been frightened. She was a little. But fear felt different when her old life had already broken. It felt less like a warning and more like weather. Dominic glanced at the bottle in front of her. "You plan to finish that? I planned a wedding too. Apparently my plans are flexible." "Cancel it." Claire's mouth twisted. "That easy no. At least you're honest. Canceling is what people expect you to do." Claire looked at him over the rim of her glass. "And what would you suggest, Dominic, for tonight?" He leaned back slightly, studying her like she was a contract with hidden language. "Keep the church. Keep the flowers. Keep the guest list." Claire snorted. "And do what Mary the priest. Replace the groom." For a second, she thought she had misheard him. Then she laughed. Really laughed. It broke out of her too loudly sharp enough that one of the pool players glanced over. "That is the worst advice anyone has ever given me." "Is it?" "Yes. It is insane. Insane is sleeping with your bride's sister 3 weeks before the wedding." Claire pointed at him with the glass. "Fair. But I cannot just walk outside and pick up a husband like takeout." Dominic's expression did not change. "No. Takeout is usually less complicated." Something about his calm made her skin prickle. Claire narrowed her eyes. "Are you flirting with me or recruiting me into something illegal?" "Depends how the night goes." Before Claire could answer, the front door slammed open hard enough to rattle the window. The whole bar changed. It was not panic. Not yet. It was recognition. The pool game stopped. The bartender lowered his hand below the counter. The sleeping man lifted his head and suddenly did not look drunk at all. 3 men stepped inside. They wore cheap jackets darkened by rain. Not tourists, not locals looking for a drink. Their eyes moved through the room with purpose. The man in front had a shaved head and a nose that had been broken more than once. His right hand stayed tucked inside his jacket. Dominic sighed. It was not a frightened sound. It was annoyance. Claire looked from the men to him. You know them. Unfortunately. The shaved-headed man smiled without warmth. Dominic Cross. Claire went cold. The name hit her like the first crack of thunder. Cross. Everyone in New Orleans knew the name even if they pretended not to. Cross Maritime, charity galas, port contracts, judges who retired early, men who disappeared from riverfront parking lots and were never discussed again. Her firm once turned down a marketing bid for one of his shell companies because her boss said the money was not worth the shadow behind it. Claire looked at Dominic. Dominic Cross sat beside her in a bar, drinking like the city did not whisper his name through locked doors. The man near the entrance moved closer. Silas wants to talk. Dominic did not turn around fully. I am having a drink. Now. Dominic's hand slipped from the bar. Claire saw it. The movement was casual, almost lazy, but every nerve in her body woke up. Tell Silas he should have called. He did. You ignored him. I ignore many men. It is one of my better habits. The shaved-headed man's smile vanished. Claire's heartbeat climbed into her throat. She whispered Dominic. His gaze flicked to her for half a second. Slide off the stool. What? Now. The shaved-headed man pulled a gun. Claire did not scream. She froze. Her body became a locked room. Dominic moved. One moment he was seated beside her. The next his hand clamped around her arm and yanked her down hard. She hit the floor behind the bar with enough force to knock the breath from her lungs. Her shoulder struck something metal. The world exploded above her. Gunshots cracked through the room, deafening in the enclosed space. Glass shattered. Someone shouted. The mirror behind the bar burst apart, raining silver fragments across the bottles. Claire curled into herself, hands over her ears, cheek pressed against a floor sticky with spilled liquor and old grime. She could not breathe. She saw Owen's face in her mind, then Madison's robe, then the gold band on the nightstand, all of it flashing in pieces between blasts of sound. A bottle smashed near her head. Bourbon ran across the floor, sharp and sweet. Dominic fired again. The sound was different when it came from near her. Deeper. Final. Then silence dropped so suddenly that Claire heard the neon sign buzzing above the window. Her ears rang. Someone groaned near the door. Claire opened her eyes. Dominic crouched in front of her, one hand holding a black pistol, the other braced on the bar. His suit jacket was torn near the shoulder. A line of blood marked his cheek, but he seemed otherwise untouched. He looked at her. Can you stand? Claire tried to answer. Nothing came out. He tucked the gun close to his side and hauled her up with one arm. Her legs nearly folded. Across the room, the three men were down. One clutched his shoulder. One writhed near the pool table. The shaved-headed man lay on his back, breathing hard, his gun several feet away. Claire stared. You shot them. Dominic glanced toward the door. They were rude. You shot them. They drew first. That is not normal. No, he said. It is Friday. Sirens wailed somewhere in the wet distance. The bartender appeared from behind the counter with a shotgun in his hands and a dead calm expression on his face. Dominic looked at him. Police 2 minutes, maybe less. Dominic nodded once. He took Claire's overnight bag from where it had fallen beside the stool, then grabbed her wrist. Time to leave. She dug her heels into the floor. No, I am not going anywhere with you. Dominic looked down at her. His eyes were dark and steady. Those men work for Silas Kane. They saw your face. You were sitting beside me. If I leave you here, they will decide you matter. I do not matter. To them you might. Claire shook her head. Her breath came too fast. I have a job. I have a mother who is going to call the police if I do not answer. I had a fiancé this morning. Dominic's grip tightened, not enough to hurt enough to anchor. Tonight you have enemies. The sirens grew louder. The bartender's eyes moved toward the back hallway. Dominic pulled Claire with him. She went because shock had hollowed out her bones, because the men on the floor were bleeding, because the police would ask questions she could not answer. Because Dominic Cross had just killed the shape of the night and seemed to know where the next breath was hidden. They pushed through a back door into an alley slick with rain. The air outside was hot and wet. Garbage bins lined the brick wall. Water dripped from a fire escape. Somewhere above them, a window unit rattled and coughed. Dominic moved fast. Claire stumbled beside him, one heel slipping in a puddle. He caught her with outslowing hand firm at her waist for one brief second before releasing her. A black car waited near the end of the alley. Not parked. Waiting. The engine was already running. Dominic opened the passenger door and guided her inside. The interior smelled like leather tobacco and cold air. Claire barely had time to pull her feet in before he shut the door and rounded the hood. He slid behind the wheel. The car shot out of the alley just as blue lights washed over the brick behind them. Claire grabbed the door handle. "Let me out!" "No," she turned on him. "Let me out of this car right now." Dominic drove through the bywater with one hand on the wheel, calm as if they were leaving dinner. "I cannot. You mean you will not. I mean there is a difference, and tonight it favors you." Rain streaked across the windshield. The wipers cut it away in hard, rhythmic sweeps. Streetlights smeared across the glass. Claire's reflection hovered there, pale and wild-eyed, beside Dominic's composed profile. "You are Dominic Cross." "Yes." "As in Cross Maritime." "Yes." "As in the Cross family." His eyes stayed on the road. "Careful which version you say out loud." Claire's laugh came out thin and close to breaking. "I got into a car with a mobster. Logistics executive. You shot 3 men in a bar. Occupational hazard. My God. Usually not involved." Claire pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. The bourbon had burned off, leaving fear behind, clean and sharp. "I need to go to a police station." Dominic's mouth tightened. "If you walk into a police station and say my name beside Silas Kane's, half the room will pretend not to hear you, and the other half will sell the information before sunrise. That cannot be true." He glanced at her. "You want comfort or accuracy?" Claire looked away. The city outside changed as they drove closer to the river. Warehouses rose in dark blocks. Chain-link fences flashed by. Floodlights glowed over shipping containers stacked like sleeping giants. Dominic reached inside his jacket and pulled out a phone. He dropped it into her lap. "Call Elliot." Claire stared at it. "I am not calling anyone for you." "Yes, you are." "Why?" "Because you are less likely to be traced from that phone if your voice is on the call. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be." The phone screen displayed one saved contact. Elliot Price. Claire's thumb hovered over the name. "What do I say?" "Tell him to meet us at Customs Warehouse 9. Tell him to bring the trust documents and a marriage license." Claire turned slowly. The rain. The gunshots. Owen Madison, the bar, the name Cross. All of it seemed to tilt around her. A marriage license. Dominic took a corner too sharply. Her shoulder bumped the door. "Yes. You are insane." "Not tonight. Why would your lawyer have a marriage license ready? Because good lawyers prepare for bad nights." Claire stared at him. "What kind of bad night requires a marriage license?" Dominic's jaw flexed. "The kind where my father's trust becomes vulnerable. Silas Kane makes a move on my port assets, and the only way to lock control before morning is for me to have a wife." The word wife filled the car like smoke. Claire looked down at her bare ring finger. Just hours ago, that word had belonged to Owen. Now it sat between her and a man with blood on his sleeve. She should have refused. She should have thrown the phone at him. She should have demanded a hospital, a police station, a church, any place with clean lights and normal rules. Instead, she thought of Owen saying, "You are just done. She thought of Madison in her robe. She thought of her mother's voice telling her not to make dramatic decisions. Claire pressed the call button. Elliot answered on the first ring, breathless. "Mr. Cross." Claire closed her eyes. "No," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "This is Claire Bennett." A pause. Dominic watched the road. Claire looked at the dark port rising ahead. "Dominic says to meet us at Customs Warehouse 9. Bring the trust documents." Her throat tightened. "And the marriage license." On the other end of the line, Elliot made a sound like a man watching a building catch fire. Dominic reached over and ended the call. The car passed through an open gate near the docks. Men in black coats stepped aside without question. Beyond them, the warehouse waited under rain and floodlight, its metal doors yawning open like the mouth of something hungry. Claire sat very still. Dominic killed the headlights, but left the engine running. For the first time since the bar, he turned fully toward her. "You wanted a replacement groom," he said. Claire looked at him, at the hard line of his face, at the blood drying near his collar, at the city's most dangerous man offering her the one thing no one else had tonight. A choice. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "And you need a wife." Dominic did not deny it. The rain beat against the roof of Customs Warehouse 9 with a hard metallic rhythm, turning the silence between them into something that felt alive. Claire sat in the passenger seat, staring at the open warehouse doors, while floodlights painted the wet concrete silver. Beyond the windshield, men moved through the shadows with guns beneath their coats and radios pressed to their ears. A wife. That word had followed Claire for months, in satin and lace, in seating charts and flower samples, in her mother's careful voice and Owen's polished smile. It had meant safety, respectability, a future arranged in soft colors. Now it sat in the dark beside Dominic Cross. It smelled like gunpowder and rain. Claire looked at him. "You said I have enemies now." Dominic's face stayed still. "Yes. And marrying you fixes that no." A bitter laugh slipped out of her. "At least lie better." "It does not fix it," he said. "It changes the cost of touching you." The answer settled over her skin. She understood him then, not completely, but enough. Dominic did not promise peace. He promised consequence. The warehouse doors groaned wider. A short man in a wrinkled navy suit hurried into the light, one hand gripping a leather briefcase, the other pressed flat against his bald head, as if he could keep his panic from escaping. Rain spotted his glasses. His shoes splashed through shallow puddles. Dominic opened his door. "Stay close." Claire looked at the warehouse again. "I am not good at obeying men tonight." Dominic's mouth twitched. "Then stand close out of spite." He stepped out. For 1 second, Claire stayed where she was, hands cold in her lap. She thought of the bedroom. Owen's open shirt. Madison in silk that did not belong to her. Her mother's voicemail asking her not to be dramatic. Then she reached for the handle and got out. The rain struck her face immediately, warm, sharp, almost cleansing. Dominic's jacket appeared over her shoulders before she saw him move. It smelled like tobacco cedar and something darker beneath. She wanted to shrug it off on principle. She did not. Inside the warehouse, the air was cooler and carried the deep, briny smell of the river. Stacked crates rose in long rows marked with shipping codes and destination labels. A single steel table sat beneath a hanging work light. On it, Elliot Price opened his briefcase with trembling fingers. "Mr. Cross." Elliot said, breathless, "This is beyond unwise." Dominic walked to the table. "Is everything ready?" Elliot looked at Claire. His eyes moved over her ruined hair, damp blouse, overnight bag, and bare ring finger. His expression folded into open alarm. "This is her." Claire lifted her chin. "She is standing right here." Elliot swallowed. Miss Bennett, do you understand the situation you are in? No, Claire said. But no one has understood my situation all day, so I am adapting. Dominic looked at her, and for a brief moment the hard set of his mouth softened. It disappeared almost immediately. Elliot removed a stack of papers from the briefcase. The Cross Maritime Trust was structured by Mr. Cross's father. Control of the port holdings transfers fully only once Dominic Cross is legally married. If he remains unmarried when the review window opens at 8 in the morning, the board can delay recognition. Silas Kane has enough influence with 2 members to challenge control and freeze certain assets. Claire listened numb but focused. How much money are we talking about? Elliot glanced at Dominic. Dominic answered. Enough to start a war. Claire looked at the papers. And you did not think to marry someone before tonight. Dominic's eyes stayed on hers. I did not plan to give anyone that kind of access to me. The words should not have warmed her. They did. Elliot cleared his throat. The union must appear legitimate. Both parties must sign voluntarily. I can file the certificate with a judge before morning. The trust will recognize the marriage if the filing is accepted and no immediate fraud challenge succeeds. Claire picked up the first page. The black print blurred for a moment, then sharpened. Marriage license. Dominic Cross. Claire Ann Bennett. Her name looked wrong beside his. Wrong, but powerful. She set the paper down. What do I get? Elliot blinked. Dominic did not. Protection, he said. From Kane. Yes. From the police if necessary. From Owen Dominic's gaze darkened slightly. That depends on how badly he wants to keep breathing through his nose. Claire almost smiled. It came too close to pain. I do not want him dead. I did not say dead. I am serious. So am I. Claire stepped closer to the table. The work light made the wet ends of her hair shine against Dominic's black jacket. Her hands were still shaking, but her voice had steadied. I want Owen to know before sunrise. Dominic watched her carefully. That you married me, that I did not spend the night begging him to choose me. Something hard and wounded moved through her chest. I want him to wake up and understand that he lost the version of me who would have cleaned up his mess. Elliot made a faint choking sound. Dominic ignored him. That can be arranged. Claire looked at Elliot. And if I sign this, I can leave when the trust is secure. Elliot opened his mouth. Dominic answered first. Yes. Claire searched his face. No tricks, no cage, Dominic said. Not from me. It was not a gentle promise. It was too bare for that. But it held. Claire thought of Owen saying, You cannot just leave. She thought of Madison saying Mom is going to be devastated. She thought of every room she had stood in while someone else's comfort became her responsibility. She picked up the pen. It was heavy black, expensive. Her fingers closed around it. Elliot leaned forward, sweating. Miss Bennett, I am legally obligated to ask whether you are under duress. Claire looked at Dominic. His face gave her nothing. No push, no plea, no charm, only the choice. She turned back to Elliot. I have been under duress since I opened my bedroom door. Elliot shut his mouth. Claire pressed the pen to the paper and signed. The ink spread clean and dark beneath her hand. Dominic signed after her, his handwriting sharp and controlled, each stroke decisive. Elliot stamped the papers, gathered them as if they might explode, then tucked them into a sealed folder. Outside, tires hissed across wet pavement. One of Dominic's men appeared near the entrance and lifted 2 fingers. Dominic saw it and nodded. Claire's knees suddenly weakened. The warehouse tilted. Dominic turned just as the pen slipped from her hand. I think she whispered, I am going to be sick. You are going to faint. I do not faint. Then the floor vanished. Dominic caught her before she hit the concrete. The last thing Claire felt was the solid pressure of his arms and the strange, humiliating comfort of being held by the most dangerous man she had ever met. When Claire woke, sunlight cut through a gap in dark curtains and struck her straight across the eyes. She groaned and turned away from it. Her skull throbbed. Her mouth tasted like Penny's bourbon and regret. For a few blessed seconds, she had no memory. Only clean sheets, soft weight over her body, and the faint scent of cedar in the air. Then everything returned. Owen. Madison. The bar. The gunshots. The warehouse. Dominic Cross signing beside her name. Claire sat up too fast. The room spun. She clutched the blanket to her chest and forced herself to breathe. This was not her bedroom. Her bedroom had white walls, a small crack near the ceiling, and a laundry chair Owen always filled with shirts. This room was massive, shadowed, and quiet. Dark wood floors, tall windows, heavy charcoal curtains, a carved fireplace, a low dresser with brass handles, fresh flowers on the table, white lilies in a black vase. Her body went rigid. She looked down. She was wearing a black shirt too large for her, the hem falling to her thighs. Her underwear was still on. Her bra was gone. Her blouse and trousers were nowhere in sight. The door opened. Claire grabbed the nearest object, a heavy glass paperweight from the bedside table, and held it up like a weapon. Dominic stopped in the doorway. He wore black trousers and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. No jacket, no tie. A bruise darkened the edge of his jaw. A shallow cut crossed one cheek. In one hand he carried a white coffee mug. His eyes moved to the paperweight. "You plan to kill me with office decor, I might. You would need better aim. Come closer and we will find out." He crossed the room anyway, but slowly, and set the mug on the bedside table. Coffee. Claire did not reach for it. "Where am I?" "My house. Where are my clothes with the housekeeper?" They were wet and smelled like a bar fight. Her fingers tightened on the paperweight. "Did you undress me?" "No." The answer came fast, flat, absolute. "My housekeeper did. Her name is Rosa. She said you cursed in your sleep and tried to punch her." Claire felt heat crawl up her neck. "I did not." "You did." She lowered the paperweight a little. Dominic nodded toward the coffee. "Drink. You were unconscious for 9 hours, unconscious or drugged." His eyes cooled. Careful. The word should have frightened her. It did, but it also made her ashamed. He had been brutal, arrogant, impossible. But he had given her a choice when no one else had. Claire set the paperweight down and reached for the mug. The coffee was black, strong, and perfect. She hated that too. "Are we married?" "Yes." "Legally, yes. Actually married." His mouth curved faintly. "There is no decorative version." Claire closed her eyes for a second. "I married a mob boss. Logistics executive. With armed guards. Expensive logistics. With enemies. Successful logistics." Despite herself, Claire breathed out something close to a laugh. Dominic watched her over the rim of his silence. There was no pity in his face. No softness, exactly. But there was attention, and after a night of being unseen by people who claimed to love her, attention felt dangerous. He stepped back. Rosa left clothes in the bathroom. "Eat something after you shower. Then we talk. I need my phone. It is charging downstairs. I need to call my office. You need to stay alive. I can do both." For the first time, Dominic looked almost interested. "You watched men bleed on a bar floor last night, signed a marriage license in a warehouse, and your priority is work." Claire threw the blanket aside and swung her legs over the bed. The floor was cold beneath her bare feet. "I am a senior marketing strategist. I have a campaign review on Monday. My life may be imploding, but quarterly metrics do not care. Dominic stared at her. Then he gave a low, rough exhale that might have been laughter in a less haunted man. "You are strange, Mrs. Cross." The name hit her like a hand against the chest. "Mrs. Cross." She looked away first. "Do not call me that. You signed for it." "I was emotionally compromised." "You were furious." "That too." Dominic moved toward the door. "Shower. 10 minutes. Claire glared at him. "Do you give orders to everyone?" "Yes. Must be exhausting being obeyed all the time." He paused at the doorway. "You are welcome to disappoint me." Then he left. The bathroom looked like something from a hotel Claire could not afford. Black marble, brass fixtures, a glass shower large enough for 3 people, and morally questionable decisions. Steam filled the room as she stood beneath hot water and scrubbed away smoke bourbon, and the ghost of Madison's perfume lodged in her memory. She cried there, quietly, not the dramatic sobs people expected from betrayed women. Just silent tears that mixed with the water and vanished before anyone could prove they had existed. When she stepped out, clothes waited folded on the vanity. Dark jeans, a cream sweater, clean underwear still sealed in a package. Her ankle boots from the night before polished and dry. Everything fit. That unsettled her more than the gunshots. Downstairs, the house was even larger than she expected. Wide hallways, dark portraits, security cameras tucked into corners. Men in suits pretending not to watch her. Beyond tall windows, live oak trees stretched over a long drive bordered by iron gates. Dominic sat at a long kitchen table with a tablet in front of him. He looked up when she entered. A plate waited at the seat across from him. Toast, eggs, fruit. Claire sat because her body betrayed her with hunger. "How did you know my sizes?" Dominic tapped the tablet once. "I pay people to know things. That is creepy. That is efficient." She picked up the toast. He slid the tablet across the table. Page 3. Claire looked down. A society news site filled the screen. The headline made her stomach drop. "Midnight Marriage Shocks. New Orleans Elite as Dominic Cross. Weds Local Marketing Executive." Her name was in the first paragraph. Claire Bennett, recently engaged to attorney Owen Mercer, reportedly married shipping magnate Dominic Cross in a private late-night ceremony connected to a major family trust filing. She read it twice, then a third time. "My mother reads this site. Then she knows you married up." Claire stared at him. "You are impossible. Frequently." Her phone lay beside the tablet. She grabbed it. The screen lit with messages. Owen. 23 missed calls. Madison. 14 missed calls. Mom. 9 missed calls. A text from Owen sat at the top. "Please come home. We need to talk. I am losing my mind." Below it, another. "Who is Dominic Cross?" Below that, from her mother. "Claire Ann Bennett. Answer me right now." Madison is hysterical. Claire stared until the words blurred. Dominic's voice cut through the quiet. "You do not have to answer." "I know." But knowing and believing were different things. Her thumb hovered over Owen's name. She typed slowly. "I am coming to get my things. Have them ready. Do not speak to me." She sent it before she could soften it. Dominic stood. "No." Claire looked up. "No, you are not going there." "Yes, I am. Kane's men may be watching places connected to you." "Then bring your expensive logistics." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Claire, my laptop is there. My clothes are there. My grandmother's necklace is there. I can send men. I am not letting strangers pack my life while Owen and Madison stand over my things." A muscle moved in his cheek. "You want closure." "No," Claire said. "Closure is too pretty a word. I want my property and the pleasure of not begging." Dominic held her gaze for a long moment. Then he looked toward the hallway. "Rafa." A broad-shouldered man appeared near the kitchen entrance. "Yes, boss." 3 cars. Quiet, no uniforms. Rafa nodded and left. Dominic looked back at Claire. "You stay beside me. If I say move, you move. If I say stop, you stop." Claire stood. "And if I say do not shoot Owen." His eyes darkened. "Then I will try to be charming. That is not an answer. It is the best one you get." 20 minutes later, Claire sat in the back of a black SUV as it rolled into the Garden District. Her old neighborhood looked different through tinted glass. The white houses seemed too clean, the sidewalks too calm. People walked dogs under dripping oak trees. A woman carried flowers wrapped in brown paper. A cyclist coasted past with coffee in one hand, unaware that Claire Bennett had left this street as a betrayed bride and returned as a crime lord's wife. Dominic sat beside her, one arm resting along the door eyes, scanning everything. The SUV stopped outside her building. 2 black cars were already parked nearby. Rafa spoke from the front seat. "Clear." Dominic opened the door. Claire stepped out into thick morning air. The apartment building looked smaller. That hurt. They climbed the stairs because Dominic refused the elevator without discussion. At the 3rd floor, Claire stopped outside 3B. The brass number was still crooked. She almost laughed. Owen opened the door before she could use her key. He looked awful. Pale. Unshaven. Still wearing yesterday's pants and a wrinkled white shirt. His eyes were red, but Claire could not tell if it was from crying or not sleeping. "Claire." He breathed. He reached for her. Dominic stepped into view. Owen's hand fell. The hallway became very quiet. "Who is this?" Owen asked. Claire held his gaze. "My husband." Owen laughed. It was a small, frightened sound. "No. That is not funny." Dominic stepped closer. "I agree." Owen looked from Dominic to Claire. "You cannot be serious." "I sent a text," Claire said. "Are my things packed?" Owen's face twisted. "Your things, Claire. We need to talk." "No. You disappeared all night. Then I wake up and see your name next to his on every gossip site in the city. Do you have any idea how insane this looks?" Claire stepped into the apartment. The smell hit her first. Coffee, vanilla candles, Madison's perfume. Her stomach clenched. "Yes," she said. "It looks insane." Owen followed her. "You married some criminal to punish me." Dominic moved so quietly that Owen did not see him until he was beside him. "Choose your next word carefully." Owen went still. From the bedroom doorway, Madison appeared. She wore one of Owen's Tulane sweatshirts. Her hair was loose. Her face looked pale and delicate, arranged for sympathy. "Claire," she whispered. Claire did not answer. If she did, she might break. Dominic's men entered behind them and waited for instruction. Claire pointed toward the bedroom. "My clothes, laptop, jewelry box, the blue suitcase in the closet." The men moved. Owen stepped forward. "Hey, you cannot just come in here and take over." Dominic looked at him. "I can." 2 words. Owen stopped. Madison began to cry. "I hate that this happened." Claire turned on her. "Then you should hate your choices, not the consequences." Madison pressed a hand to her mouth. Owen's voice cracked. "Claire, please. I made a mistake." "No," Claire said. "You made a decision and hoped I would be too embarrassed to punish you for it." His face flushed. "That is not fair." The anger rose in her so fast she nearly shook. "Fair was me planning a wedding while you learned how my sister liked to be kissed." Silence. Madison looked down. Owen closed his eyes. Claire walked to the bookshelf and began taking what belonged to her. Her marketing books, her framed diploma, her grandmother's recipe box, a small ceramic mug from a trip to Savannah. Ordinary things, tiny pieces of a life that had not known it was ending. Her hand reached for a framed photo near the lamp. She and Madison on a beach as girls, both sunburned, both laughing. Claire stared at it. Her throat closed. The frame slipped. It struck the floor and shattered. No one moved. Claire stared down at Madison's young, smiling face beneath cracked glass. A tear escaped before she could stop it. She hated it. She hated that Owen saw it. Hated that Madison saw it. Hated that pain still had access to her body. Dominic crouched beside the broken frame. Carefully, without hurry, he picked up the photo and brushed glass from the corner with his thumb. He stood and handed it to her. His voice was low enough for only her. "Leave the glass." Claire looked up. His eyes held no pity, only understanding. Let them walk around what they broke. Claire took the photo. Something inside her settled. She walked to the kitchen counter, removed her apartment key from her ring, and placed it on the marble. Owen watched her. "You are really leaving?" Claire looked at him one last time. "I already left. You are just seeing it now." Madison sobbed softly behind him. Claire did not turn. Outside, Dominic's men carried boxes down the stairs. Claire walked behind them with her overnight bag on one shoulder and the broken photo in her hand. Dominic followed close enough that his shadow touched hers. At the curb, Owen called her name from the building entrance. She did not look back. Dominic opened the SUV door. Claire climbed in. As the car pulled away, she watched her old apartment disappear behind rain-streaked glass for the second time in 24 hours. This time, she did not feel homeless. She felt claimed by something terrifying. And as the iron gates of Dominic's estate closed behind them later that morning, Claire understood that the life waiting inside those walls did not care how badly her heart had been broken. It only cared whether she could learn to stand without flinching. The iron gates closed behind the SUV with a deep metallic thud, and the sound followed Claire all the way into Dominic's house. It was not home. Not yet. Maybe not ever. It was too large, too quiet, too guarded. Men spoke into radios near the entrance. Security cameras blinked from corners. Somewhere beyond the front hall, a dog barked once, then went silent after a low command. The whole place felt less like a mansion than a fortress that had learned how to wear polished wood and expensive art. Claire stepped inside, carrying the framed photo of her and Madison against her chest. Dominic noticed but said nothing. That was becoming one of the most unsettling things about him. He did not press where Owen would have explained. He did not soften where Madison would have cried. He only watched as if he understood that some wounds got worse when people tried to decorate them with words. Rosa met them in the hall, a sturdy woman in her 60s with silver hair pinned tight at the nape of her neck and eyes sharp enough to cut through excuses. "You need food," Rosa said to Claire. "I need my laptop. You need both." Claire almost argued, then smelled garlic and butter drifting from somewhere deeper in the house. Her stomach gave a painful twist. Dominic turned to Rafa, who stood near the door with a phone to his ear. "Have the boxes brought to the east guest room." Claire looked at him. "Guest room?" Dominic's eyes met hers. "For now." The two words carried more weight than they should have. Claire looked away first. Rosa guided her toward the kitchen, but Claire stopped near the base of the staircase. Her phone vibrated in her hand. It had been vibrating since they left the apartment, a steady pulse from a life that refused to die quietly. Owen again. She declined the call. A voicemail appeared immediately, then a text. "Claire, please. I know I destroyed everything. Just talk to me. I can explain Madison. I can explain all of it." Claire stared at the message until the letters lost shape. Dominic moved behind her close but not touching. "You do not owe him a courtroom." Claire locked the phone. No. But he keeps trying to build one. Dominic's jaw shifted. Block him. If I block him, he will use my mother. He already is. The bluntness cut, but it was not wrong. Claire slipped the phone into her pocket and walked toward the kitchen. For the next hour, she tried to pretend she was a woman who could eat scrambled eggs in a Mafia boss's kitchen after watching her old life get packed into boxes by armed men. She failed. She managed half a slice of toast and 3 sips of coffee. Dominic took 2 calls during breakfast. On the first, he said almost nothing, only listened while his eyes turned colder. On the second, he told someone named Mateo to move the south shipment before noon and sweep every truck twice. Claire sat across from him watching. There was no panic in him, no wasted movement, no raised voice. Owen used to get tense if a restaurant lost their reservation. Dominic discussed ambushes and assets with the same controlled tone most men used to order dinner. It should have disgusted her. Some of it did. But another part of her, the part still raw from being made small, watched the way people obeyed him and felt something dark and unfamiliar stir. Not admiration, exactly. Recognition. Power did not ask permission to fill a room. Later, Claire found her laptop in the east guest room placed neatly on a desk beside her charging cable work notebook and noise-canceling headphones. Her boxes were stacked near the closet. Her clothes smelled faintly of her old apartment vanilla detergent and grief. She changed into a silk blouse Rosa had somehow produced in her size and sat at the desk. Monday morning arrived without caring that Claire had become a wife overnight. Her calendar was still full. Her campaign review was still scheduled. Her boss, Grant, still expected the digital performance deck by noon. The world of spreadsheets, ad spend, and conversion funnels remained disgustingly intact. Claire opened her laptop. Her hands trembled only once. Then muscle memory took over. She logged into the meeting. Grant's face appeared on screen, pixelated and impatient. Behind him was the glass conference room at Westbridge Analytics, the one with the fake plant in the corner and the whiteboard nobody ever cleaned properly. "Claire," he said. "There you are. We were starting to wonder if you got buried under wedding planning." The joke landed badly. Claire smiled anyway. "Sorry. Rough weekend. I saw something online. Is everything okay?" Half a dozen co-workers stared from little squares on the screen, hungry for drama while pretending concern. Claire kept her face composed. "Personal situation. I would rather keep the focus on the campaign." Grant blinked, then nodded. "Right. Of course. Walk us through the numbers." Claire shared her screen. For 3 minutes she sounded like herself. Clear, precise, professional. She discussed paid search performance, audience drop-off, and checkout abandonment with a calm that felt almost obscene. Then a crash came from outside the room. Claire paused. Grant frowned. "What was that?" Claire muted herself and turned. Through the tall window behind her in the courtyard below, 2 of Dominic's men were unloading wooden crates from a black truck. One crate had split open. Metal parts clattered across the stone. A third man shouted something in Italian. Another knelt beside the crate with a scanner in his hand. Then Dominic crossed into view. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. His jacket was gone. His knuckles were wrapped in white tape and blood marked the edge of one bandage. Not a lot. "Enough." Claire stared. Dominic looked up as if he felt her watching. Their eyes met through the glass. He lifted one eyebrow. Claire turned back to her laptop and unmuted. "Apologies. The apartment has a plumbing issue. Temporary relocation." A coworker named Beth leaned toward her camera. "Is that a man with a gun behind you?" Claire's heart stopped. She clicked the wrong button, then the right one, minimizing her video. "No," she said too quickly. "That is a contractor." Grant squinted. "An armed contractor." Claire closed her eyes for half a second. "New Orleans is competitive," Dominic entered the study without knocking. Claire muted herself again and spun in her chair. "What are you doing?" He walked to the sideboard as if he owned every inch of air in the room, which unfortunately he did. He poured water into a glass, drank half, then pressed the cold rim against the bruise near his jaw. "You are in my study. I am in a meeting. I noticed. You noticed and still came in. You were lying badly. I was curious." Claire pointed toward the door. "Leave." His eyes moved to the laptop screen, where Grant's frozen face waited in the corner. "Is that the fragile one? That is my boss. He looks breakable. Most people do compared to your social circle." Dominic looked down at her campaign deck. "Why are you selling software to people who already clicked and did not buy?" Claire stared at him. "What?" He nodded at the chart. "They came close enough to touch the product, then left. Either the offer is weak or the checkout scares them." Claire blinked. That was exactly the problem. She hated that he had understood it in 7 seconds. "Do not do that. Do what be correct while bleeding in my workplace." Dominic's mouth curved faintly. "You call this work?" Claire leaned forward. "Yes. Just because nobody gets shot during my meetings does not mean they lack violence." This time he actually laughed. It was low and brief, but real enough to change his face for one dangerous second. The sound entered Claire somewhere it should not have. Grant's voice crackled from the laptop. "Claire, are you still with us?" Dominic looked at the screen. "She is busy." Claire lunged for the mute button, missed, and slammed the laptop half shut. The room went silent. She stared at Dominic. "Are you out of your mind? Frequently accused." "That was my boss." He interrupted. "He pays me. I can pay you." The words hung there. Claire stood so fast the chair rolled backward. "No." Dominic's expression shifted. Claire felt the air tighten. "You do not buy my job from me," she said. "You do not buy my choices. You do not buy the parts of my life that existed before you." Dominic watched her for a long moment. Then he set the glass down. "You are right." The simple admission threw her more than an argument would have. Claire crossed her arms defensive because she had lost her footing. "I am..." "Yes." He turned toward the window. "Kane requested us sit down tonight." The room seemed to change temperature. Claire's anger faltered. "Silas Kane." Dominic nodded. "Neutral ground. Private room in the French Quarter. He wants to see you. Why, he thinks you are paper." Claire looked at him. "Paper? A signature? A legal trick? A woman I found paid and hid in a room." His gaze returned to her. "He wants to see if you crack." Claire's throat dried. "And if I do?" The trust becomes vulnerable. He pushes the board. He tests my territory. "Men die." The bluntness made her hands go cold. "You want me to sit across from a crime boss and pretend this marriage is real?" "No. No, I want you to sit across from him and remember why you signed." Claire felt the old wound open. Owen, Madison, the robe, the ring, her mother's voicemail. Dominic stepped closer. "Do not perform love. Kane will smell the lie." "What do I perform?" His eyes dropped briefly to her bare finger. "Power." Claire looked away toward the window, where rainwater clung to the glass in trembling lines. "I am not powerful." Dominic's voice lowered. "You walked into an apartment full of people who broke you and did not ask any of them to put you back together." Claire turned. He was watching her with an intensity that made breathing difficult. "That is not power," she said. "No," he replied. "It is the beginning of it." At 6 that evening, Rosa brought a garment bag to Claire's room. Inside was a black dress. Not sweet, not bridal, not soft. black silk cut simple and close to the body with thin straps and a low back that made Claire stare at it for several seconds before touching it. Beside it sat a velvet box. She opened it. A diamond ring rested inside, square cut and cold with fire. Claire carried the box downstairs. Dominic waited in the foyer wearing a black suit and a white shirt, no tie. His bruised jaw looked worse in the overhead light. His hair was damp from a shower. A pistol rested in a shoulder holster beneath his jacket like a natural extension of his body. Claire held up the ring. "This is absurd. It is visible. It is the size of a casino. Good. Dominic." He took the box from her and removed the ring. Claire instinctively stepped back. He noticed. Something unreadable passed through his face. "You can put it on yourself." The restraint in his voice unsettled her. Claire took the ring from him. It slid onto her finger with cool weight. Too heavy. Too beautiful. Too much. She looked at her hand. Owen's ring had made her feel chosen. Dominic's made her feel marked. She was not sure which terrified her more. Dominic studied her. "You look like a widow who killed well." Claire looked up. "That is the worst compliment I have ever received." It was sincere. Try less sincerity. His gaze moved over her once, and the look was not gentle. It was controlled but not indifferent. Claire felt it like heat at the base of her throat. "You will sit beside me," he said. "Not behind me, not across from me, because we are pretending to be partners." His eyes held hers. "Because Kane needs to believe I am dangerous enough to marry a woman who could become one." The restaurant sat beneath a boutique hotel on Royal Street, down a narrow staircase behind a velvet curtain and a hostess who did not ask for names. The dining room smelled of roasted garlic lemon wine and money. Low amber light washed over exposed brick walls. A jazz trio played somewhere upstairs, the bass notes drifting down through the ceiling like a heartbeat. Dominic's men checked the room first. Kane's men waited near the far exit. Nobody smiled. Silas Kane rose when Claire entered. He was older than Dominic by maybe 15 years, with silver hair combed neatly back and a narrow face that might have looked refined if his eyes had not been so flat. He wore a pale gray suit and a red pocket square. His hands were clean manicured, almost delicate. That frightened Claire more than blood would have. "Mrs. Cross," Silas said. The name slid from his mouth like an insult dressed for church. Claire held his gaze. "Mr. Kane." His eyebrows lifted slightly. Dominic pulled out Claire's chair. That surprised her. She sat. Dominic took the seat beside her close enough that his knee nearly brushed hers beneath the table. Wine had already been poured. Plates waited untouched. Oysters on ice. Charred bread. Butter in a small white dish. Claire looked at none of it. Silas sat back and studied her. Claire Bennett, marketing strategist, betrayed bride, midnight wife. He smiled. "That is quite a rebrand." Claire wrapped her fingers around the stem of her wine glass to keep them still. "I specialize in crisis positioning." Dominic's shoulder shifted beside her. "Not much," enough for her to feel his amusement. Silas chuckled. "Pretty answer." It was accurate. His smile thinned. "You know who I am?" "Yes." "And you came anyway?" Claire looked at Dominic, then back to Silas. "I was invited. Most people are wise enough to decline my invitations. I had a difficult weekend. My standards have shifted." One of Kane's men near the wall made a faint sound. Silas's eyes sharpened. "There she is." Claire said nothing. Silas picked up an oyster fork and turned it between his fingers. Dominic always did like collecting dangerous things. Guns, ships, debts. Now a wife. His gaze dropped to the diamond on Claire's hand. "Though I admit this one looks expensive for something temporary." Dominic's voice was calm. "The trust is recognized. The board has no grounds." Silas ignored him. "Tell me, Claire. How much did he offer you?" Claire felt Dominic go still beside her. She could have lied immediately. She could have acted offended. Instead, she let the silence stretch. Then she said, "Less than I am worth." Silas laughed. A real laugh this time. Dominic turned his head slightly toward her. Claire kept her eyes on Silas. "Careful," Silas said. "You may start believing your own performance. Is that what this is? You tell me." Claire leaned back. "What do you want to know? Whether I signed voluntarily, I did. Whether I understand the money involved, broadly. Whether Dominic Cross is dangerous, obviously. Whether this marriage began under normal romantic circumstances. No, but most marriages I have seen were built on worse lies with cheaper rings." Silas watched her with new interest. "You speak well under pressure. I present to executives for a living. Executives do not cut off fingers. You have not met enough executives." Dominic reached for his water. Claire saw the faint movement of his mouth as he drank. Silas set down the fork. The amusement left his face. "Let us stop decorating the obvious. Dominic needed a wife because his dead father was paranoid and sentimental. You needed revenge because your fiancé preferred your sister. It is almost poetic." Claire's stomach tightened, but her face stayed still. Silas noticed the flicker anyway. "There it is," he murmured. "Pain. Much more reliable than love." Dominic's voice went colder. "Say what you came to say." Silas looked pleased. "I made some calls. Owen Mercer, tax attorney, clean record, good family, office downtown. He has been making quite a scene today, by the way. Crying into phones, asking questions about Dominic Cross that a smarter man would not ask." Claire's fingers tightened around the wine glass. Silas saw. Dominic did too. "Leave him out of this," Claire said. Silas smiled. "Why, he is the reason you are here." Claire's pulse thudded in her ears. Silas leaned forward, lowering his voice as if sharing something intimate. "I could send 2 men to his office tomorrow. Nothing dramatic. A broken hand. Maybe 2. Lawyers need fingers, do they not? Or perhaps your sister." "Madison." "Yes." "Beautiful girl. Careless girls often open doors they should not." The room narrowed. Claire felt Dominic's rage before she saw it. It moved through him like pressure before a storm. His hand rested near his jacket, still relaxed, but the violence in him had awakened. Under the table, Claire's knee touched his. A warning, or a plea. She was not sure. Silas kept watching her. "You see the problem. Mrs. Cross fake wives have real weaknesses." Claire set down her glass. The crystal touched the table softly, almost politely. "Owen stopped being my weakness when he climbed into bed with my sister." Silas's smile faded a fraction. Claire's voice did not shake. She was distantly proud of that. "And Madison stopped being my responsibility when she decided my pain was an acceptable price for her attention." Dominic turned his head toward her fully now. Claire leaned forward. "If you want to scare me, Mr. Kane used something I still respect." The silence that followed had teeth. Silas stared at her. "You would let me hurt them?" Claire's throat tightened. For half a second she saw Owen not as the man who betrayed her, but as the man who had once brought her soup when she was sick. Madison not in stolen silk, but at 9 years old during thunderstorms. Anger was easy. Cruelty was not. "No," Claire said softly. Silas's eyes brightened. Claire continued, "But I will not perform grief on command for people who did not protect me when it mattered. Owen is not a leash. Madison is not a knife you get to hold to my throat. If you touch them, it will not be because I broke. It will be because you are too unimaginative to threaten anything real." Silas's expression hardened. Dominic leaned back in his chair. "You heard my wife." The words moved through Claire slowly. "My wife. Not as theater, not entirely." Silas looked from Dominic to Claire and understood, perhaps before Claire did, that the performance had become inconveniently alive. He stood. His chair scraped against the floor. "The board will hear about this sham." Dominic's voice remained smooth. "The board already cashed my checks. Kane territory does not bend forever." Dominic stood too. The room seemed to shrink around him. "No, it breaks." For one breath, nobody moved. Then Silas smiled, but there was no humor left in it. "Enjoy your bride while she still believes monsters can be housebroken." Claire stood. The diamond on her hand caught the light. "Enjoy your threats while people still mistake them for strategy." Silas's eyes cut to her. Dominic laughed once under his breath. Kane left without another word, his men folding around him like shadows. Only after the velvet curtain fell closed behind them did Claire realize her hands were shaking. Badly. She sat because her legs could no longer be trusted. Dominic remained standing for a moment, watching the door. Then he turned to Rafa. "Follow, at distance. No engagement unless they move first." Rafa nodded and disappeared. Dominic sat beside Claire. The room was suddenly too quiet, the food untouched, the wine too red in the low light. Claire looked at her trembling fingers and tried to make them stop. They would not. Dominic reached under the table. His hand closed around hers. Warm, rough, careful. The contact grounded her so abruptly that she almost pulled away. "Almost. You held," he said. "I was terrified. I know." The admission surprised her. She looked at him. "How? Your pulse." His thumb rested lightly against the inside of her wrist. Claire should have been angry that he had noticed. Instead, the intimacy of it stole her breath. Dominic's eyes were dark, fixed on her with something heavier than desire. "You did not give him your fear." "I gave him plenty." "No," he said. "You gave him language. There is a difference." Claire laughed weakly. "That sounds like something I would put in a branding deck. You also called his threats unimaginative. He annoyed me." Dominic's mouth curved. "You are more dangerous annoyed than most men are armed." She looked down at their joined hands. "I meant what I said." His thumb stilled. "About Owen, I do not want him hurt. I hate him. I hate what he did. I hate that some part of me still remembers loving him. But I do not want him broken because of me." Dominic's expression did not soften exactly. It deepened. "He is being watched." Claire's head lifted. "What I put men near his office and your old apartment this morning, to threaten him, to keep Kane from reaching him." Claire stared at him. "You protected Owen. I protected your choice." The words moved through her with frightening force. Dominic looked away first as if he regretted how much he had revealed. "If someone ruins him, it should be you deciding not to answer his calls, not Kane using him as a prop in my war." Claire did not know what to do with that. Owen had loved the agreeable parts of her. Madison had needed the responsible parts. Her mother had depended on the forgiving parts. Dominic Cross, violent and impossible, had looked at the ugliest part of her anger and made room for it without trying to own it. The drive back to the estate was silent. Rain returned in fine silver lines, blurring the French Quarter into streaks of yellow light and black iron balconies. Claire sat beside Dominic in the back of the SUV, the diamond heavy on her hand, her pulse still uneven. Dominic looked out his window. His profile was sharp in the passing light. The bruise on his jaw had darkened. There was blood on one cuff that had not been there before dinner. Claire wondered when it had happened, wondered why he had not mentioned it. Her phone buzzed. Owen. She silenced it. A moment later, another message appeared. Please tell me you are safe. I do not know who that man is. I am scared for you. Claire stared at the words. For the first time, they did not pull her backward. She locked the screen. Dominic saw. Hard, yes. Do you want me to take the phone? No. A pause. Then Claire said, I want to be the kind of woman who can hold it and still not answer. Dominic turned his head. The look he gave her made the air in the SUV feel thinner. You are becoming that. They reached the estate near midnight. The gates opened. The SUV rolled up the long drive beneath dripping oak branches. When it stopped near the front steps, neither of them moved. Rafa got out first, then the driver. Doors shut. Footsteps faded. Claire and Dominic remained in the dim blue glow of the dashboard. She heard the rain ticking softly against the roof. She looked at him. I used you. Dominic did not pretend not to understand. Yes, I signed those papers because I wanted Owen to feel humiliated. I wanted Madison to see me choose someone bigger, darker, harder to dismiss. I did not care about your trust or your war. I know. His calm hurt more than judgment would have. Claire swallowed. And you used me. Yes. The honesty should have ended the conversation. It did not. Claire turned in her seat. So what is this now? Dominic's eyes dropped to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. Dangerous. That is not an answer. It is the only honest one. Claire reached across the space between them before she could lose courage. Her palm touched his chest. Beneath his shirt, his heartbeat was slow and hard. Dominic went completely still. The stillness was not indifference. It was restraint. Claire, he said. Her name in his mouth sounded like a warning placed at the edge of a cliff. She leaned closer. You keep warning me. You keep ignoring me. Maybe you should try asking. His hand covered hers against his chest. His skin was hot. His grip careful, but not gentle enough to lie. If I ask, I will want an answer. Claire looked at the blood on his cuff, the bruise on his jaw, the mouth that had offered her no comfort and somehow given her more safety than anyone else in her life. Ask. Dominic's control broke quietly. No dramatic movement, no rushed claim. Only his hand sliding to the back of her neck, fingers threading into her hair as he pulled her across the space between them. The kiss was not soft. It was not polite. It tasted like Scotch rain and everything Claire had been too proud to say. His mouth moved against hers with a hunger that felt less like seduction than recognition. She gripped his jacket and the diamond on her finger pressed hard against his chest. He did not flinch. Claire kissed him back with the same anger she had carried out of the apartment, the same terror she had swallowed at the dinner table, the same reckless need that had made her sign her name in a warehouse while men with guns waited outside. Dominic's arm locked around her waist, pulling her closer until the center console dug into her hip. She did not care. Her hands found his hair, then his jaw. He hissed when she touched the bruise. She pulled back instantly. Sorry. His eyes opened, dark, focused, gone past careful. Do not apologize for touching me. The words settled low in her body. He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, as if the first kiss had been impact, and this one was the aftermath. When they finally separated, their foreheads rested together. Claire could hear both of them breathing. Dominic's thumb brushed the side of her neck. You were supposed to be temporary, he said. Claire closed her eyes. So were you. Outside, the rain softened over the estate. Inside the SUV, the air between them had changed shape completely. Claire did not know if that made her safer or more doomed. She only knew that when Dominic opened the car door and offered his hand, she took it. And this time she did not tell herself it was only part of the deal. By the second week, Claire stopped waking up with her hand reaching for a door that was not there. The first few mornings inside Dominic Cross's estate had been full of small panics. A footstep outside her room, a low voice in the hallway, the soft click of a security camera turning above the staircase. Every sound reminded her that this house did not sleep the way normal houses slept. It watched. It listened. It held its breath. Then, slowly, the fear became familiar. Not gone. Familiar. Claire learned the rhythm of the place. Rosa started coffee at 6. Rafa changed the guard rotation at 7. Dominic entered his study before sunrise and did not turn on the lights until the sky began to gray behind the oak trees. Men came and went through the side entrance with sealed envelopes, bruised faces, and the careful silence of people carrying more than paperwork. Claire kept working. That was the strange part. Her laptop sat on the mahogany desk in the East guest room, surrounded by campaign notes, financial reports, and a growing stack of cross-maritime documents she had never asked to understand, but somehow could not stop reading. In the morning, she reviewed ad performance for Westbridge Analytics. At night, she studied shipping schedules, vendor lists, port fees, board communications, and coded inventory sheets that Dominic's men seemed to treat like sacred texts. At first, Dominic told her to leave them alone. Claire ignored him. The first time she found an error, it was in a fuel surcharge report. Nothing dramatic, nothing bloody, just a repeating invoice pattern from a supplier with 3 addresses and no real office. She circled the numbers in red and left the file on Dominic's desk. He found her in the kitchen 20 minutes later. "You marked my report." Claire looked up from her coffee. "Your supplier is fake." Dominic stood very still. Rafa, who had been reaching for a pastry near the island, slowly put it back. Claire tapped her pen against her notebook. Not fake as in non-existent. Fake as in built to look boring. "The invoices are too clean. Same billing interval, same percentage increase, same wording on every approval note. Real companies are messier." Dominic watched her. "You found this how I sell software to people who don't know they're being sold software. Patterns are patterns." Rafa leaned over the file. "That vendor cleared 3 shipments last month." Claire sipped her coffee. "Then I would check those shipments." Dominic did not praise her. He picked up the report and left. 2 hours later, 3 men dragged a terrified accountant through the courtyard. Claire saw them from the window. The accountant was crying. Dominic walked behind them, sleeves rolled up, face calm. Claire stepped away from the glass. Her stomach turned. She had wanted to be useful. She had not yet learned how useful became dangerous in Dominic's world. That evening he came to her room and found her sitting on the floor beside the bed, knees pulled to her chest, the vendor file open in front of her. "You were right," he said. Claire looked up. "Did you kill him?" "No." The answer came without hesitation. She searched his face. Dominic leaned against the doorframe. He is in a safe room with 2 broken teeth and a sudden interest in cooperation. Claire closed her eyes. "That's supposed to make me feel better." "No." "Then why tell me?" "Because you asked." She looked down at her hands. "I don't know how to live near this." Dominic's voice was quiet. "You don't have to." That was the first time he said it. Not as a threat, not as a manipulation, not with anger. "You don't have to." The words stayed with her. They followed her through the next days as the estate tightened around them. Silas Kane's men stopped making open moves, but the city still hummed with pressure. A cross truck was followed near the port. A judge, who owed Dominic a favor, suddenly left town. Owen called less often, but with longer voicemails. Madison sent one message every night, each softer and more wounded than the last. Claire deleted most of them, One she read twice. "I know you hate me, but Mom says you're scaring everyone. Please come home so we can talk like sisters." Claire held the phone for a long time after reading it. Then she typed one sentence. "Sisters don't steal each other's lives and call the damage love." She did not send it. She deleted it too. By the end of the second week, Claire no longer ate alone in the guest room. Sometimes Dominic found her in the kitchen after midnight barefoot in one of his old shirts reheating takeout while reviewing port reports. Sometimes she found him in the study, shirt open at the collar, a fresh bandage beneath his ribs staring at maps of the river like the water itself had betrayed him. The first time she changed one of his bandages, neither of them spoke. He sat on the edge of the bathroom counter, jaw tight, while she cleaned a shallow graze near his side. Her fingers were careful. His breathing was not. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Yes. You could have said something. You looked focused." She pressed the gauze harder than necessary. "You're impossible." His mouth twitched. "You married me. Under emotional distress. You keep mentioning that. I keep remembering it." His eyes lifted to hers. "So do I." The silence after that was not empty. It was crowded with the memory of the SUV, the kiss his hand at the back of her neck, the rain tapping against the roof while she stopped pretending the deal was still clean. They were not gentle with each other after that. They argued over breakfast, over guards, over how much truth Claire deserved, over whether Dominic's men were allowed to stand outside the door during her work calls. They kissed in hallways in the study, once against the cold stone wall near the cellar after Claire accused him of treating her like glass, and he answered that glass cuts when it breaks. Every day the marriage became less convenient. Every day it became harder to name. Then Elliot Price arrived on a gray Thursday morning with 2 folders clutched to his chest and the expression of a man carrying either salvation or a bomb. Claire was at the kitchen island with her laptop open, a half-eaten croissant beside her hair twisted into a loose knot. She was reviewing a cross-maritime board packet because Dominic had a talent for terrifying old men and no patience for formatting. Elliot stopped across from her. "Mrs. Cross." Claire looked up. "You only call me that when you're nervous." "I am always nervous. More nervous than usual." He set the first folder on the island. The trust recognition came through. The holding board has accepted the marriage filing and confirmed Dominic's control over the port assets. Silas Kane no longer has legal leverage through the trust. Claire stared at the folder. The whole house seemed to pause. Somewhere far away, a door closed. "That's done." Elliot nodded. "It's done." For 13 days, the marriage had been a lock on a vault, a shield against Silas, a move on a board Dominic had never wanted to play publicly. Now the lock had clicked. Claire should have felt relief. Instead, she felt the floor shift beneath her. Elliot placed the second folder beside the first. This one was thinner. Her name was printed on the tab. Claire Bennett Cross. Then beneath it in smaller type. Annulment petition. The word moved through her like cold water. Claire did not touch the folder. "Where is Dominic in his study? He sent you." Elliot's eyes flicked away. "He asked me to explain the terms." "Of course he did." "Claire." The use of her first name startled her. Elliot looked exhausted, kind in his nervous way, sadder than she expected. "He wanted you to have a clean choice. No pressure. No audience." Claire laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "Dominic Cross thinks his absence is not pressure." Elliot said nothing. Claire opened the folder. The papers were neat, efficient, generous to a degree that made her angry. A private settlement, $5 million, legal support, security for 90 days, relocation options if she wanted them, a clean public narrative, mutual incompatibility, no admission of fraud, no stain on her professional reputation, a perfect exit. Dominic had thought of everything. That was the problem. Claire saw herself reflected in the black marble countertop. Not the woman from the bar, not the almost bride, not quite the wife either. Her face was calmer now, sharper. Her eyes no longer looked like they were waiting for permission to hold anger. Elliot slid a pen toward her. She looked at it. The metal was black, heavy, expensive. Not the same pen from the warehouse, but close enough that her hand remembered the weight. "You don't have to decide this." "Second," Elliot said. Claire picked up the pen. The room went silent. She imagined the life on the other side of her signature. An apartment with white walls. A careful explanation to her boss. Lunches with co-workers who tried not to ask about the gossip sites. Her mother crying at the kitchen table and saying Madison made a terrible mistake, but family had to heal. Owen showing up with flowers and shaking hands, asking for one conversation, then one apology, then one more chance to prove he was still the safer man. Safety. Claire used to think safety meant low risk. Now she knew it could also mean slow erasure. She saw herself becoming reasonable again, apologizing for the size of her anger, softening the story so Madison could survive it, letting Owen call what he did a mistake because betrayal sounded too ugly at family dinners, returning to a life where people loved her most when she made herself easier to carry. The pen hovered above the line. Her hand did not shake. That was how she knew. Claire set the pen down. Elliot exhaled. Then Claire picked up the annulment papers and tore them straight down the middle. Elliot made a strangled sound. Mrs. Cross. She tore them again. Those were filed drafts. She tore them into quarters. They looked ugly. Legal documents are not judged by aesthetic standards. These are. She dropped the pieces into the trash beneath the island. Elliot stared at them as if they were human remains. "What do I tell him?" Claire closed the first folder, the one confirming Dominic's control, and tucked it beneath her arm. "Tell him nothing." She walked down the hall before Elliot could stop her. The house felt different as she moved through it. Or maybe she did. The guards near the study door straightened when they saw her, but neither blocked her way. One of them opened his mouth, thought better of it, and stepped aside. Dominic's study doors were half open. Claire pushed them wide. He stood by the window with his back to her, looking out at the gray morning. His white shirt was rolled to the elbows. A holster crossed his shoulders. One hand rested in his pocket. The other held a glass he had not touched. He did not turn around. Did Elliot explain everything? Yes. Good. His voice was even. Too even. Claire walked into the room and placed the trust folder on his desk. The board confirmed control. "I know. And the annulment papers were insulting." His shoulders went still. Slowly he turned. His face was closed, every emotion locked behind the dark architecture of him. "You were supposed to sign them." "I noticed." Claire. There it was again. That warning. That cliff edge. She stepped closer. "No." His jaw tightened. No, I'm not taking your exit just because you decided to make it noble." Something flashed in his eyes. "This is not about nobility. Then what is it about you leaving alive?" "I am alive. You are standing in a house full of men who solve problems with guns." "I noticed. You found one fake vendor and now you think you understand this world?" "No." "Good." Claire kept walking until only a few feet separated them. "I understand enough to know I don't want to go back to mine." Dominic's expression hardened. "That is heartbreak talking. It was heartbreak 13 days ago. And now it's clarity." He laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You do not have clarity. You have adrenaline anger and an attraction to danger you will regret when it stops feeling romantic." The words struck hard because part of her had asked herself the same thing. Claire absorbed the hit. Then she nodded. Maybe. Dominic blinked. She continued. Maybe some part of me is still angry. Maybe part of me likes the danger because it makes the pain look smaller. Maybe I don't know how much of this is love-revenge trauma, or the fact that you kiss like a man trying to win a war. His eyes darkened. But I know this, she said. Owen made me feel like a room he could leave whenever he got bored. Madison made me feel like a possession she could borrow. My mother made me feel like peace was always my job. She stepped closer. You handed me a pen. Dominic said nothing. You did not save me from my life. You gave me a door and let me decide whether to burn it down. His control cracked then, not visibly to anyone who did not know him, but Claire knew him now. She saw it in the shift of his breathing, the way his fingers tightened around the untouched glass. I am not a good man, he said. No. I have done things you do not want named. I know. You stay beside me, and Kane will not be the last man who tries to use you. My enemies will watch you. The law will circle you. Your old life will look cleaner every time blood gets on the floor. Claire's heart beat hard, but her voice stayed steady. I'm not asking for clean. What are you asking for? A seat at the table. Dominic stared at her. Not a room upstairs. Not a guard outside the door. Not a diamond that announces I belong to you while you make decisions that shape my life. She placed her palm against his chest, right over his heart. I am not collateral damage, Dominic. I am not a legal loophole. I am not a temporary wife you get to protect by dismissing. His heartbeat was faster than she expected. I am your partner. The word changed the room. Dominic looked down at her hand, then back at her face. Partner, he repeated. Yes. His voice dropped. Partners bleed. Then teach me where to press. For a moment, all the danger in him went still. Not gone, never gone, but focused entirely on her. The glass slipped from his hand and hit the rug without breaking. He reached for her slowly as if giving her one final second to step away. She did not. His hand closed around the back of her neck and pulled her to him. The kiss was not frantic like the first one. It was deeper than that. Rough still because Dominic did not know how to be anything else, but there was something reverent beneath the hunger now. His other arm wrapped around her waist. Claire gripped his shirt and felt the holster beneath it, felt the truth of the life she had chosen pressed against the heat of his body. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. You understand there is no pretending after this? Claire looked into his eyes. I stopped pretending in that restaurant. His mouth curved. God help New Orleans. Claire smiled then. Not sweetly, not softly. Like a woman who had found the sharp edge of herself and decided not to file it down. At 11, Claire walked into the Cross Maritime boardroom beside Dominic. The room occupied the top floor of a private building near the port, all glass walls, and polished steel with a view of the Mississippi bending through the city like a dark ribbon. 12 board members sat around the long table. Older men, mostly. Expensive suits. Careful faces. Men who had expected a scandal to disappear once it had served its purpose. They looked at Dominic first, then at Claire, then at the diamond on her hand, then at the folder beneath her arm. Dominic took the head seat. Claire took the chair to his right. No one invited her. She sat anyway. A board member with silver brows cleared his throat. Mrs. Cross, this meeting concerns operational security. Claire opened the folder and removed a marked report. No. It concerns a leak disguised as operational security. The man blinked. Dominic leaned back in his chair and said nothing. Claire slid copies down the table. 3 shell vendors have been routing invoices through legitimate fuel and maintenance channels. One was connected to Silas Kane's people. The other two appear dormant, but they share language patterns, approval timing, and account structures. You have a financial infection wearing a logistics uniform. The room went quiet. Another board member frowned. And you found this? Claire met his eyes. Yes. With respect, your experience is in marketing. With respect, that is why I found it. You were looking for guns. I looked for behavior. Dominic's mouth moved almost imperceptibly. Claire continued, voice clear, hands steady. Kane does not need to overpower Cross Maritime if he can make the board doubt its own systems. He is not only attacking shipments, he is attacking confidence. Confidence is narrative. Narrative is leverage. And gentlemen, leverage is what everyone in this room pretends not to trade in. No one spoke. Outside the windows, cranes moved along the port. Containers shifted. Trucks rolled in slow lines below. The city kept breathing beneath them, unaware that Claire Bennett Cross had just taken her first public step into the machinery that ran under its skin. The silver-browed board member looked toward Dominic. Dominic did not look back. He kept his eyes on Claire. She speaks for herself, he said. The words were quiet. They landed everywhere. Claire looked around the table. 2 weeks ago, she had stood in a bedroom holding wedding favors while her life humiliated her. Now 12 powerful men waited for her next sentence. She tapped the report once. Let's begin.